said that today we're going to have fun because that's exactly what I find stop motion to be. Because for me, it's the art form I use, and it's the thing I do the most. And what you don't see is my entire basement filled with all the toys that I use to play with. And I'm working on a film right now, doing some versions of cutout illuminated manuscripts to be interstitial pieces of stop motion animation for the Divine Comedy. So I work with pretty much anything anybody throws at me, which is kind of how I set this up today. I've got eventually I'll be showing you, where the little what we're actually looking at, because I actually do have a camera set up and there's a reason for this. But I also have little balls of clay, and I have little monkeys.
Nice.
I have flowers, beads, a little basket, tiny shit, a little bit of stuff. Sorry.
Hey, we're not censoring you, Killian. So everyone, if you do not like above 18 language, leave now.
just a slight warning. I'm sorry. It does slip from time to time. I try to be.
By all means, if you get a curse, let it out. It's not. We're all adults here.
There you go.
Good. In class I figure, but this is slightly different. So what I wanted to do is sort of talk about some choices that you can make when you start stop motion animation, because what are some of the stop motion animation you all are most familiar with?
I just watched Wes Anderson's new movie, the dog one. Isle of Dog, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Because there's a
Wallace and Gromit.
Absolutely,
Wallace. Jared.
Yeah, awesome. I'm hoping I can see. I'm gonna have to squint because I'm quite a distance from my computer. Wallace and Gromit is awesome. That's Aardman Films, and they started out doing stuff to recorded wild sound. So what they would do is they would just record people in, like, there's one where they've recorded people in a records office in Britain. There was a laundromat. And then, of course, they did Creature Comforts before Wallace Gromit, right around in there. And one of my favorite animators used to work with Aardman. His name's Barry J.C. Purvis. I'm going to type this in here so that you can look him up. And he worked with them before Wallace and Gromit, like right as they stopped being the wild and they started going into actual, real animation, so to speak. And he struck out on his own, and he's been making films for 30, 40 years. So are there any that so far, when we're talking about I Love Dogs, that one's going to be armature animation, puppet animation. The same thing with Wallace and Gromit, only the puppet animations with clay instead of basically sewn and fixed. But the armature is going to be the same because the armature is what holds it together. And of course, I didn't pull over my armature card. So I have to reach over here. I have everything set up so that it's pretty much within arm's reach if I'm working on something. There's a couple of different ways to make armature. I usually just use armature wire. I set it up so that it's jointed, or it has spaces that, it has that mobility. But are there other ways to do animation that doesn't require armature? Yes. What would they be? Has anybody ever heard of Monty Python? Nobody's heard of Monty Python, really? Wow. Okay.
Francisco has, Jared has.
Good. Monty Python. Okay, if you have, here's another one, just in case. I think some of you are lying to me, but Monty Python. There's a guy who worked with Monty Python. It was a television show, and they've made several movies. And his name's Terry Gilliam. Have any of you heard of him as a director?
Yes.
Cool, great. So Terry Gilliam started out doing cutout animation, and cutout animation is stop motion because technically you're capturing the movement and making things happen frame by frame by frame. Now, I always find it funny that people are like, I love making movies, but I don't like doing stop motion, because really, if you think about it, movies are all stop motion, right? Because everything's frame by frame by frame by frame. It's just a lot faster and a lot easier to do live action than it is to actually snap it frame by frame. But everything that we do is based on that persistence of vision, and knowing that you get 3 to 4 frames before it fully registers with your brain. It stays with you, and since one frame stays with you and stays with you, we fill in the middle, essentially doing the tweening. So that's it. So everything that we're doing right now is perfectly valid ways to tell stories, including you could do it with little flowers, you could do it with earrings, jewelry. Oh, let me bring this guy out real quick. And I've used him before too, made films with little puppets like that. And
so any of us, Killian, have stuff around our house we could just pick up today and get going.
Which was actually the next thing I was going to say. Please go find something to play with.
Anybody, find something you have to play with right now.
Anything. Pencils. Okay, great. Whatever it is.
Water bottle, love it.
Yes, awesome. Okay, I will be right back. I'm going to go get my button.
There we go. It's about to get started. Oh, man. I'm trying to figure out what I should use to play with. It'll be crazy. And guys, feel free, use the chat box to ask any questions, because Killian's about to start and she might not be able to see the chat, so I'll be able to. What is that?
That's my buddy. I call him Mr. Lumpy Bits, but he's actually a Minotaur, and he is made with baked clay, wire, chains, several different layers of paints and different stuff. Glue on there, lift him up. His little legs work. Now, I can't spend much time trying to make him work for today, but he does. He is fully articulated and hopefully looks a little scary.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. That said, you can also start with little balls of clay or anything else. So right now, if nothing else, just get your hands used to doing stuff, because even though it's a very, very slow, tiny process, stop motion is an incredibly hands-on process. So if it's your water bottle, figure out what your water bottle is. What's your water bottle's personality?
Zaya, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead. Killian, were you able to hear that?
I did not. I'm sorry.
Azai, write in the chat box. What's your water bottle's personality? I think he's having some audio issues, Killian.
Oh.
Make sure you have the right microphone setting.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Oh, teddy bear. Yay. What's your teddy bear's personality?
He's really shy. I don't know.
Yeah, very, very shy. I can see that. He's like eating just up over. He's like, I'm going to hide that she's eating. Yeah, there we go. She can chew behind me. I've got her. There you go.
Oh, Mick got a, I don't know what that is, but that was pretty cool. That's a dinosaur.
Oh, that's awesome. Dinosaur dragon? Dino dragon?
It's a seahorse.
Oh, seahorse.
So he can have his own babies. That's awesome. Okay.
All right.
So what's your seahorse's personality?
An asshole seahorse or something like that?
Okay. So your seahorse is an asshole. Awesome. All right. I am going to, I've basically just been making little, here's my hands. I think that's the reason I started doing this, is because I can't stop doing stuff with my hands. So it helps me do that. So I made a little worm. His name's Bert. Oh, funny. Okay. Are you gonna, what's your water bottle's personality?
Oh, did I say a superhero?
A Spyro?
Superhero.
Superhero.
Superhero. Okay, what's his superpower?
Now I have to figure out that.
You
Maybe-
can hold water.
Well, or maybe he hasn't even figured out his superpower yet. Maybe he's like a superhero who's waiting to get that power bestowed, right?
That might be the point.
Here we go. Hold him up real quick. Hold up your water bottle. I know this is crazy, but yeah, okay. So this water bottle is on a quest to figure out what his purpose is. Awesome. And then of course he's going to run into an asshole seahorse, and he's going to probably startle a very shy little bear. And then we're going to have this sort of grumpy little worm come up and sneak into his stomach and be a tapeworm so that he can eat everything and never gain an ounce, and it'll be great, right? Okay. That said, how do these? The reason you have to figure out your personality first, because when you're watching people, and let's be honest, how many of you actively just sort of watch people without them knowing? Okay.
Totally.
If you are a filmmaker and you didn't raise your hand, learn to do that. Always, always, always watch people. If you're an audio person and you didn't raise your hand, that's fine, because you're probably listening to them and eavesdropping. And if you are an animator, you really, really have to, because it's one of the main things animators have to understand. Human beings, when you're working with an actor, can give you their personalities and will give that to you. But objects have to have the personality imbued. So as you are looking at your water bottle, and your water bottle is a superhero who is wanting to figure out what his purpose is, how would he move? Well, I'm going to ask you a question.
All right.
Would he actually do that? Because he can't fly yet, right?
Oh, okay.
So hold him on your hand. Okay, hold him up like that. All right. And does he stand up tall or does he lie down? He stands up, right? Okay, there we go. Now, is he a happy guy?
Yeah, he seemed like a happy guy.
Okay, then lift him up a little.
Ooh.
There we go. Yeah, happy guy. He's got confidence. You're gonna make sure he's big in the frame, and he's happy guy. And he's confused, so he's gonna look around. Move him around slowly, just a little bit. There we go. He's looking, right? And as he's looking, notice you're looking with him. You know, because you kind of got to keep an eye on him. That's because you are infusing him with you. So
Okay.
you're acting like the curious person who's looking, right? There we go. Yes, awesome. I am now starting to believe that that bottle is in search of purpose.
Okay.
I really am. Actually, it's kind of weird. Man, let's say you're your asshole seahorse, please.
Should I put my hand
How does
down?
the seahorse move?
We can see you.
How does he move?
How does he?
Oh, so he's like right in your face. Like a fake smile too, isn't he? So, okay. So he's like, you're moving him across and he's going dum, 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 right? What's that telling you?
That he don't care anything. in front
Okay,
of him.
you don't care, right? Can you maybe hold him still for a second? Hold him up and hold him still for a second. And anybody out there, ask Asshole Seahorse a question.
Why are you always smiling?
Okay. He's gonna respond. How's Asshole Seahorse gonna respond?
Why the fuck you say that, huh? Don't care.
Alberto,
Just smile.
did you see his face?
Yeah.
Did you see Alberto's face? I got to see that by act. Okay, so when Brad asked the question, Alberto went, and it was awesome because that's exactly right what the seahorse would do. So how would you move him so that his face is telling you, fuck you, man, no. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that attitude. My cat has the greatest move. She'll walk up and she'll stare at me And then she'll pick up her paws and turn her half body and flounce the other direction when she's annoyed with me.
Yeah.
And that's what little, yeah, seahorse. Why are you always smiling? Yes, exactly. So you're going to start thinking in terms of what your personality of your object dictates, because the object is what you're telling your story through. And it's very different from having to tell an actor or work with an actor. Okay, I teach directing, so some of the things I say right now are not going to sound at all like what I'll say in class, because you really do nurture and work with actors very, very carefully. But there's a bit of a shorthand of sometimes you tell your actor, look, this is a very, very painful scene. What are you doing? And the actors will go, well, I'm remembering when I was a kid and all that stuff. Well, here's the thing. This doesn't have the propensity to remember when it was a kid.
Mhm.
You have to put that into the object, and you are the one that gives it its movement. So when you're watching all these animation works and all the, including things like Up or anything from Pixar or Disney, you have lots and lots and lots of animators working on the same characters, because there's a couple of different jobs you can have. You can do keyframes, which is giving the basic run of the personality and the basic story. And then you have tweeners, the ones who actually fill in between. And those are usually the ones that are a little bit, they're not the tip tops. They're the ones who fill in, whereas the other people are the storytellers. So there's fewer storytellers with the characters, and sometimes there will be one character animator for each one, because that person knows how the character moves.
When you say fill in.
Okay, so, wow, yeah. All right, let's just use the keyboard, okay? So if you think of each one of these keys as frames, right? Let's say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 frames, which is half a second of movement. How long does it take to touch your head?
1 second. 1.
Like half a second, right? If that much, yeah? So this movement from my hand being here, or even lifting your glass to drink from my hand being here to here is half a second. So the person who's designing the character knows that the character moves that fast. Sometimes the character will move faster, maybe even hit themselves 3 times for every 12 frames, right? That's really fast, but a lot of anime will do that. You've seen like the punch, 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 right? That's pretty, punch, punch, very fast. Well, the person who's designing the character will set this keyframe that the hand is here. And then this keyframe, half a second later, the hand is here. So they decide how quickly everything's done, but the person who does the in-between frames, all they do is they fill in the 12 seconds, the 12 frames, right? So the person who's designing it doesn't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. But the person, they have the tweeners. So that's in between frames. You'll have key frames and then tween frames. Does that help? Yeah. See, I love these things. This answers every question. All right. Or not. I don't know. So, so now that we kind of have an idea of what the personalities of everybody are, you kind of now think of what's your environment. Now, my little monkeys that you haven't really met yet, here's one. Can you see the set here, like this house thing? Yeah, I've got this set up and I've got my camera over here so that I can take a picture of. Can you see the camera too? Good, yeah. Okay, yeah, I've got a T3i. If you're a camera snob, that's fine. My T3i does just fine. And you can make stop motion with your phone. You can make stop motion with any camera at all. All you're looking for is the best way to get a good image. And then you string them together. So, here we go, little monkey guys. All right, so we've got my worm is, well, my worm is aggressive. We've already decided that, because if my worm's going to be invading the superhero bottle's guts and living in there, it's probably not a very nice worm. And once I start thinking about it, how is an aggressive worm going to move? It's probably not going to be la la la. It's going to be ruh, 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 sort of bouncy. Yeah. Oh yeah, that kind of work. Okay. So and the environment is, my story is, my worm is going to come up on this little Thai house and eat the monkeys, then go invade superhero's belly. So where does your character live? So Alberto, did you have a character?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I got this. I think it's a squid.
Oh, I feel like he's friends with the asshole seahorse.
He's probably, yeah. Okay, so what's your asshole squid? What's your squid's personality?
Like his powers, he can actually just splash colors around.
Okay, so squid is probably an artist, which means squid's slightly chaotic and just goes around spraying people with colors. That's awesome. Good thing you didn't say he's a little Cthulhu and he's going to call forward the old masters and, old gods eat everything. That's fine. I'd rather be splattered with color. Okay, and teddy bear. I'm sorry. What was your name?
Dorian.
Dorian. Okay, and where does your teddy bear live?
He lives in a little cave by himself.
Oh.
So does he is it a normal bear?
Kind of lonely.
It's like I think it could be a cave in the shape of a house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably got little pictures on the wall, little hand that cross stitch stuff like "Home Sweet Home, I love this very much."
Yes.
It's a shy, happy bear. Okay.
Look through the three bears.
And where does the asshole seahorse live?
He live in a van.
In where?
In a van.
In a lamp?
Van.
Man.
Van.
And
Yes.
Okay. Asshole seahorse lives in a van.
don't seahorses need water to breathe?
Oh, you probably got a cup.
This asshole seahorse is a different kind of type of seahorse, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
You got your work cut out for you, Killian.
Yeah, the asshole seahorse has basically decided Darwin was right. I'm going to evolve now and do whatever I want. That's awesome. I got to give it to this seahorse. Okay, is the van one of those sort of 70s type vans with like the shag carpeting on everything and the cup holders? And
It's a Saki van.
it's just a sucky van, okay?
Yeah.
Lots of backfire and kapow noises when it starts, and and like the door always sticks and he can't always get in or out, and sometimes he gets out and all the garbage falls out of his van. Awesome. Okay, so if he were to run into the Scooby-Doo crew, we'd have a problem, right? They'd probably be, yeah, okay. I totally want to see this guy kick Scooby-Doo's ass. That's what I want to see. All right, so he lives in a van. Where does the bottle live?
In a small town.
In a motel?
Small town.
Oh, in a small
Small
town.
town.
Which town? Like,
Let's see. Santa Monica.
okay, so Santa Monica. All right. I love it. Superhero Santa Monica. That's great. Okay, so all right. Everybody now knows the personality and your home, a little bit about the movement and that sort of thing. What I'd like you guys to do is I would like you to come up with something your character would say. Let's get a good question, a good prompt. All right, your character is out on the street at a mall, a big mall, like one of those sort of a outdoor, not a strip mall, but one of those that's kind of like streets closed down and festivals and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
Like an outdoor mall type thing?
like an outdoor mall, but not one of those strip malls, because those strip malls depress me, and I don't want to go to a strip mall. So
In
strip
there.
mall, but an outdoor mall, and there's like maybe a street fair or a street festival going on. But at one end of the mall, there's this guy who is standing there with a sign that says free hugs. How is your character
Whoa.
to a man who says free hugs?
It's 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Um,
So okay, what would the bear do?
my bear would say no thank you and then it would run away.
Okay, awesome. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Could you please say no thank you as your bear and then run away again, please?
No thank you.
Here we go. Exactly. Don't hold back. Oh, and now you know what who came up on my screen now? I got the big screen of Alberto. So Alberto, let's see Squid's response. Artie Squid.
He would say, if you hug me, you'll get color on you and you become a true artist.
So you wouldn't just hug him and squirt ink all over him?
He doesn't necessarily shoot ink. He shoots like paint.
Right. Yeah. No, I was just imagining like so he warns you. He doesn't just willy-nilly paint people.
Not really. He does warn. He does warn people, but if you want to hug me, go ahead. But you'll be the one covering true colors.
Wow. You know, your squid is really nice.
Thank
You
you.
look like a nice squid. Y'all are scared of being jerks, aren't you?
Pretty much.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's an important thing to know because when you're telling stories, when we watch things, how often do we root for people to be nice?
A lot.
Never. Conflict is best.
So some people do root for people to be nice. Which people do you root for them to be nice?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, so if you like nice characters, who are your favorite characters?
I like when bad characters act nice. Like
Yes.
Tony Soprano.
Okay, yeah. So sneaky, yeah. Okay. Well, from Avatar. Okay, yes.
I forgot which one that is.
Avatar: The Last
The one
Airbender.
on Netflix.
No, I know the show is. I forgot what the character is.
And
There's Aang, Katara, and Sasuke.
Zuko's uncle.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, apparently we have a 20-minute warning. So I guess I better get to the other bit. I'm sorry.
20 to 30. We only have an hour timed out, Killian.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I did have this set up. So let me go ahead and let's finish talking. So one of the things about nice people in stories, which is great, because we want nice people in the world. But one of the things when you start telling stories, most of the time, we don't really want nice people in our stories. Most of the time, we kind of want some, conflict. And you can't have conflict without occasionally having an asshole.
Seahorse.
I really get the feeling this story is turning out that everybody's going to be hating on that seahorse. All right.
Glad they're not hating on my squid.
Oh, you can't hate on your squid. Your squid warns everybody. That's why I was so worried about your squid coming in going, oh, it's okay. I won't squirt you unless you hug me, but then I will. Oh, come on, man.
I like that.
What? Okay. So this is the house over here. Remember where that was? This is what it looks like through my camera. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the lights here.
Oh, there you go. Oh, wow. That looks-
Oh wow, that's actually a pretty flower.
And then
She disappeared.
She'll be back.
I'll be
She
back.
always comes back.
I
I
think she turned into a flower.
so this would look better. So the fun thing about the way I got this set up is you can do shot for shot. You get the light to come across through the windows. Or, let me bring that up a bit so that you can see the little, there we go.
Wait,
No.
is that supposed to be like the same flower?
No, there's 3 different ones there. It was just sort of an experiment. I hadn't decided for sure I was going to do that because I think it's a little bright. So let's see, we can bring in Wormy, right? Let's do maybe a little basket because there's the fall off on that side. There we go. Yeah. And monkey there. Worst case scenario.
Go inside and hang with Dad.
I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. I thought I had myself muted.
Oh, no problem. Oh, that looks good, Killian.
Oh, now I can tell that's a basket.
Yep, we got a little fill going on there. There we go. Yeah. It's probably a little more light than I want, but I don't have a whole lot of time to sort of dick around with it. But we've got a little. So we can then bring this guy in. So let's see. So we talked about how he would move, right? And I
Yeah.
think probably bouncing would be the best idea. So, I mean, especially since he's kind of a jerk. Which means I'm going to need a wire, at least in part of him, so that he can stay up. Otherwise, he'll flop around when I try to animate him. So can you see? Let's see. Maybe-
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So here, and this is, I'm just going to push the wire in like this.
So how do you film it? Like once you have your character and like the story and everything, how do you start filming?
Yep, that's what we're gonna do. I'm actually gonna take a couple shots of this and show you how it's filmed.
And Killian, you could get the clay and wire just from a local craft shop or online.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so I used to get my wire from Blick because it is actually a little bit cheaper there, but I also pick up stuff from Amazon.
Cool.
So yeah, all right, let's get that out of the way. Now, all right, we've decided we're gonna have him bounce in, okay? Which means now I need to make sure that I'm getting my, and this is why I've got it all set up. You might not be able to see me do this because this is gonna pop up on another frame. So I'm just gonna get my, there we go. This program has a really nice way of letting you get focus. It lets you get in on a teeny tiny piece and get focus right where you want. Because I love working with macros, and that means that my depth of field is usually about this big. So it means that I have to work, but this particular lens, which is a 50 millimeter macro, has a really great bokeh because you can see a little bit of the glow back here. And if I were to take that back like that, so we could do that. All right, now, but we're gonna go ahead and leave this here so that you're actually seeing little wormy guy. I know that I'm gonna have to work along here to keep him mostly in focus. And I know I'm gonna come up to that point, so he's gonna bounce in. So as we're going, behind you guys is my panel. So here where am I? Sorry. This is giving me like 10,000 things I have to deal with. Live view. There it is. Sorry. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we'll take pictures. The first thing that's going to happen is it's going to ask me to save it somewhere. So I've got to set this up. Oh, that's kind of cute. All right. And then I'll just leave that up. And we just start moving in. We can put a tiny bit, get to where, right there. Just my finger comes in, so I'll take this one. And the reason I'm doing it slightly off is because the shadow's changing just a little. So we're knowing something's coming in. I'm probably working way too fast. And I'm shooting this on ones, which is, it's going to be really, really jumpy. You can also, if you want to save some time, you can shoot on twos, which means you would take 2 images like I just did.
What program is this, Killian?
So this is the regular EOS utility that comes with Canon cameras.
Okay.
So it's, if you have a Canon camera or if you just want to download it, it's free. There are lots and lots of really nice, super fancy animation software out there that are great. I just don't have any. I work very cheaply. Half the stuff that I have, for instance, like this little house here, the baskets, most of the stuff I have, I've even found in dumpsters or it's been given to me. I really try to spend as little as possible because when I do spend money, it's going to be on the wire. It's going to be on the stuff that I really have to have. Like, you know, you were, remember all the foam core you guys gave me. This piece here is actually, this back here is one of those pieces. So
I love it. I mean, what you talked about earlier, how any object you could add personality and bring it to life really opens up the options.
yeah, and that's the biggest trick. So we're going to stop here and we're going to let him, he's going to live here for now. And I'm going to go ahead and start bringing his head up just a touch.
Great question from Jared. He wants to know what's the wire for, but I'm assuming that's to add movement.
The wire is to make sure it stays a little stiffer. I could work with just the clay, but the problem is the clay can get overly soft and the wire just keeps it, you know, a little more.
Can you give me the name of the program again? I want to write it down.
Sure. It's Canon EOS Utility 2.
Utility 2, like the number 2?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so he's now, if I'm thinking what's happened here is I've decided my little guy raised his head, right? So I could automatically start doing something, but don't we sometimes pause and think before we make our next move? So I'll give him just a couple extra frames just sitting there, which gives me a chance to have this little guy, you can barely see, but because his little face is a different color, I can start moving him a bit so that the background isn't dead. And that's where things start getting tricky because if you have, like, one of the most frustrating scenes I've ever done, I had 50 characters on set at once. And, you know, it was in a space about the size of a dining room table, 50 little wire guys running around, and you have to make sure they're all moving with their own personalities at their own speeds, at their own time, while the main action is happening here, even if they're out of focus. So it was a lot. This is fun. And this guy's gonna start coming forward. I'm gonna turn him just a touch more.
Killian, have you ever done any of this with an iPhone?
I have not, but it can be done that way. I mean, it's just taking images. That's all.
Yeah.
Is you
How
get,
do you know when to snap the picture, or are you pushing it?
actually, I'm not. I have it hooked up, and that's why the camera is staying as still as it is, and that's why I use this utility. I have the camera set up, hooked up to the computer. I am pushing a button on the computer, so I never touch the camera. And you can hook it up from the, it hooks into your computer just like you would with doing a, just like charging your phone. You can hook it up, put it in, and then this utility, I've not tried this with a phone, but it might work. Or you could do a search for whatever phone you have, if you have Android or iOS. You could do a search for what is it? Trying to remember what it's called. Basically it's remote clicking or remote photo taking, because all you're doing is you're just doing it from somewhere else, but it's still going through the same thing. His little head's gonna come back down. Yes, I've been squishing him. That's another thing about the clay. You have to be really careful, especially when it's warm and prepared, is you get fingerprints in it, you get, and I'm gonna go ahead and sort of stop for a second. One of the things about stop motion and about indeed any animation that's really important to carry with you is that artifice is the main point.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want something that looks just like life. So Leica, they did Kubo, Anomalisa, you know, and they've done a couple, and actually trying to remember if maybe Leica worked with Wes Anderson, but I don't know. So anyway, they try to make things in some cases as real as possible. For instance, Anomalisa was really creepily accurate, except they left some of the sewing and the seams in the puppets so that it wasn't too real. Because of course, then you get into the uncanny valley, and that makes things really, really uncomfortable. The whole point of animation, and indeed especially stop motion, is you give the personality and the feeling and the essence and tell the story, but it's making sure that you and the audience and everyone knows it's a lie. Because the story is incredibly true only if it's a lie. If the same thing happens with films too, and even documentaries, people immediately think, well, a documentary, it has to be the truth, it's telling the truth, and sure, it's telling somebody's truth, but it's not necessarily telling the truth. And in some cases, the truth is not so much reality as it is the illusion that works. And that's what stop motion allows you to do. You get to live through these objects, and you get to create a world that didn't exist and only exists in this particular moment and in this particular way. Same thing with any film, same thing with any recorded arts or any animations, and then graphics, of course, are developing a world that you can see so that you know what your product's going to be. You walk up to your packaging and you know, oh, that box right there has the particular cashews I need because they hit my emotional pulse.
Yeah.
Because this whole business is about telling stories and bringing people together and giving them the feelings they need. So the next step that I would do, which is the part that takes absolutely forever and we simply do not have time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen share right now. The next part we would do is we would put, I I have a process. Everybody else has a different process for putting together their images. I like putting them through Photoshop first and doing a batch change so that they are all set to a new size and a new resolution. And then after I do that, I put them into After Effects to make a sequence so that they're all one sequence instead of being the individual frames. Then I take it into Premiere and I edit it there. Not everybody does that. Lots of people don't do the After Effects step. You can drop them straight into Premiere. Hard part about that is, of course, Premiere, when you're taking in a still, you have to tell it exactly how long you want the still to last. It's all sort of early stuff. I like the After Effects step better, but that's just me.
When you, do you incorporate stop motion in your classes?
I have one class where I do a stop motion project, and that's Directing 320. The reason I do it, it's the Lego animation project, because I used to with Lego. But the reason I do it is because doing any sort of storytelling on the small scale, but having to see the whole thing, allows you to see the filmmaking process in a microcosm. So, and really from where you can have sort of the God's eye view of what's going on. You can see everything when you're doing this. You can see the story, you can see what's coming in, what's going out, you can see where things are outside the boundaries, you can see what's expected and what's finished, all that kind of stuff. So you have, you are able to see, and for directors, it's important to know kind of where everything's are.
Great. I think Dorian has a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dorian.
How does it work? 'Cause I know some people, I see them do like stop motion with like actual real people.
Mhm.
How does that?
Same thing. It's the same system. All of it's going to be based on taking the images. You can cheat and do time lapse with people, but that's not. And the process for that particular thing, like with live people doing stop motion or what looks like is frame to frame, is it's called pixelate. So you're pixelating. So like if let's say, okay, we can. Let's say my hand, all right? Because it's a live thing. And if I'm doing a pixelator or stop motion of it, take a photo of the hand, take a photo, 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 take a photo. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's the same, we just have it in the same place and it would do this. It's really kind of cool. I think there's a couple of music videos that were about 8 years ago. It was this huge thing in music videos where like there was this one, they had this guy running in bed. They had the world passing by. There was somebody rising up, but they of course never moved. They were on the floor and doing the movements, and you move things next to them.
Mm-hmm.
It was really what?
Jamiroquai?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Yeah, there was yes. I don't remember which song, but yeah, that one. And then of course Tool did a lot with stop motion as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't people, that was
And
sound.
Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sledgehammer. I know that one.
Okay, Sledgehammer is a great one. Sledgehammer is claymation. It's not animation, it's claymation, because there's two different ways to do it. And the slicing of it and the clay being not a character, but being the purpose and the work done in the clay makes it claymation. Clay animation is what I was showing you, what I was just doing, which is animating clay.
Yeah. Very cool.
Fine difference, but it's a difference. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, we have about 5 minutes left if there are any questions. And just before we close out, Killian, thank you so much. Again, this was supposed to be fun. We wanted to bring people together. Yes, Killian, I see you pointing at me.
I mean, storytelling is a lot. Yes, okay, so how do I explain that? You know, here's the thing. it's hard because you're telling a story, and by telling a story, you've come at it from your point of view, and you are telling it with your perspective, your interpretation, and that means it's a beautiful thing that exists on its own, but isn't what happened. Does that make sense? Because I actually, even though I say storytelling is a lie, I actually think it's a great truth, because the story itself becomes its own existence. And this is where Stanislavski and I part ways. I just noticed your acting thing next week. So Stanislavski, anyway, I believe that the work is truth, but it isn't what happened. It only happens in its own space. Does that make sense? Well, it can. I mean, I guess really an unreliable narrator is somebody who is purposely lying to you, but most people think they're telling you the truth. So most narrators are going to tell you what happened, but they're going to only have their perspective. The After Effects step takes the individual frames and makes them into a sequence, so that it's all like one clip instead of all the tiny frames. And then you can take that sequence and drop it in and play with it however you want, rather than having to fight with the individual frames.
That's awesome.
But there are other ways to do it. That's just what I do.
Killian, my biggest takeaway, I think we all need to look at objects and think about what is their personality. Because a story writes itself that way. I think that's just a really good tip as a filmmaker, as a creative. Don't just limit it to, well, when the actor comes in, they'll have a personality we can work with. You create it. You tell the story. I like that.
Absolutely. And that's what actors do. You guys are going to discover that next week. It's awesome.
Is the sequence in Targa or JPEG?
The sequence is, it's going to be a JPEG sequence.
Okay. Cool. All right. Any final questions?
I got none.
Yeah, go for it.
I had none.
Oh, you have none. Okay. Guys, well, we hope you had fun. Again, this is supposed to be fun. We want to make sure everybody has a good time. You're able to surround yourselves with creatives, and we can't wait to see everybody on campus soon. Again, join us next week. We're going to have events throughout the summer. We have acting, lighting, really good stuff coming up. Killian, thank you so much. Round of applause. That was a lot of fun.
You tell great stories. Thank you all very much.
All right, guys, you can do it at home. You can do it at home. Just find some objects.
Yay.
Yay. And if you have any questions, just let us know. We are here to help. Contact your admissions counselor. If you have questions for Killian, she will answer them. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.